Hey everyone, Phil Snyder here. Hey, today's video is going to be on the crime of burglary. That is Utah Title 76-2-202. Burglary is a forcible felony. This video is for all police officers, security guards, and even private persons that are curious what this crime entails, what the elements are, and what you're looking for if you're a victim or you're investigating a burglary case. I know every cop has their favorite thing to do that they like in patrol or other assignments. Some cops like to do DUI arrests. Some cops like to do drug cases or gang cases. One of my favorite calls were burglary cases. Burglary suspects usually have two things in mind when they commit a burglary. They're either there to take things or they're coming in to hurt people. I've had a number of these successful cases I've made arrests on, and later in the video we're going to talk about one of them, share a real life experience. Also interesting to know that in most states and many jurisdictions, if you have a burglar in your home, because that is classified as a forcible felony, you're going to be authorized in using deadly force in many jurisdictions. Of course, you would want to check your local laws just to be certain, and probably do that ahead of time in case something happens. But the elements of burglary is, number one, it's entering or remaining unlawfully in a building or any portion of a building. So in Utah, attached garages to the home are considered that building. Entering or remaining unlawfully could take place under two scenarios. Either it could be that proverbial stranger that comes into the home unlawfully, or maybe you have a guest in the home, somebody that was initially invited and then they were, let's say, an unwanted guest and they were asked to leave. That would satisfy that one element. The other element of burglary is there has to be intent shown to commit one of these crimes. Any felony, any assault on any person, any theft, regardless of the value, lewdness or lewdness involving a child, and for example, that would be, masturbating in front of somebody. Sexual battery, that would be, maybe groping somebody in the genital area or the buttocks or the breasts, and that causes affront or alarm to that person. Or voyeurism. Voyeurism would be maybe they're using cameras or surveillance equipments to spy on somebody in a home, or maybe they're not using equipment, and that might be, window peeping, where somebody has an expectation of privacy in a home. So if you have these two elements, that is the crime of burglary. Now, if these crimes are committed in the course of a burglary, that would be a separate offense. So, for example, burglary of a dwelling or a residence would be a second-degree felony. And let's say they committed a theft. Well, they would also get that theft charge as well. Tips for investigators or patrol officers when you're going on burglary cases. You should have a policy manual that dictates how you handle these cases. I know patrol gets really busy, but I just think that we should take a little bit of extra time on burglary cases because of the serious nature of them and how these often end up in deadly force shootings. And obviously, if you go on a homicide call or a shooting call, you're going to spend much more time on that. So why not try to prevent them? And, let's catch these bad guys, because often it's not their first rodeo. You always want to try to determine the entry and exit points into the home if possible. You want to look for the time frame of occurrence. So, maybe between 10:30 a.m. and 6 p.m., something like that. You want to look for evidence left behind in the burglary. For example, smooth, shiny surfaces that may have been touched, such as windows that may have been opened. Painted surfaces, open drawers, mirrors, things like that. I remember on one particular burglary case, I found some latent fingerprints on a glass vase that somebody had picked up and emptied some costume jewelry that it was located in. We actually ran that fingerprint successfully through the AFIS machine, and it turned up a suspect in that burglary. You want to look for shoe or boot prints, maybe on the door that was kicked, or maybe it's snowing and there's boot prints laying around. If you do have that evidence, you want to take photos of that. Photos of the fingerprints, latent fingerprint lifting, or photos of damage to the house, or photos of boot prints and things like that, shoe prints. You want to canvass the area, and you want to look for video. Maybe look at cameras nearby. Maybe somebody had video, or maybe inside of the home there were video of that. And you would want to take that, get a copy of those videos and book those into evidence. You want to canvass the area for witnesses. Okay, there's nothing wrong with old-fashioned door knocking, and I had a very successful burglary case where old-fashioned door knocking resulted in a major bust of where I yielded 3 arrests and recovered 3 stolen guns and ammunition that we'll talk about a little bit later. You want to ask the victim if they know of any potential suspects and why they believe they are suspects. You'd be surprised just asking that question. They might come up with somebody that might be of interest to you. If you do arrest suspects, you want to Mirandize them. You want to read them their Miranda rights. Try to find out from these suspects and get them to talk. Find out if they're active in the area. Maybe they're probably doing other burglaries in the area. Get the addresses of those if they admit to doing so, and ask about property that was taken and trying to link them to other cases. Simply explain to them that telling the truth is a good thing, and if you find out later that they've done so, it's going to be better off for court purposes that, everything is linked together versus, having an arrest and then 6 months later they're charged with something else for enhancement purposes and things like that. If you're in a confession, have them give you details of the burglary, of what they did while they were inside of the home, and that will link them to the cases, to that case, but it'll also give you a method of operation or an MO in these cases. So then you can read other burglary reports, and if they have similar MOs, then you can use that to link them to other cases as well. Whether you're an investigator or you're a homeowner, you want to get serial numbers of everything that was stolen, particularly guns. Guns have serial numbers, but other property could have identifying marks on it. So if you got something valuable, you could etch maybe your social security number or the last 4 of your social security number or your initials. Any identifying marks and serial numbers, those items can be listed on NCIC. This is a National Crime Information Center. And for example, serial numbers on a gun can be traced anywhere in the United States by listing on NCIC. And investigators, make sure they do get listed on NCIC. Identifying marks are very helpful for pawn shops. Typically cops, when they take these reports, they get assigned to a detective and they will check pawn shops for this property. I know pawn shops, at least where I work, they would hold property for 30 days before they displayed it for sale. So be a good idea to wait 30 days. If you're a victim of a crime and you're combing the pawn shops and doing your own work, maybe you might want to spend a little bit more time than maybe an officer would have time to do. And if you do locate this stuff, either through pawn shops or maybe you're checking the Facebook marketplace, things like that, you wouldn't want to confront this person, but you would just give that information to the case manager on the detail, and so they could follow up on that. I had a burglary case in 2006 in which I received a Division Commander's Award for. A very interesting case, but I'd like to share this story because it shows what old-fashioned door knocking and being a little proactive can do. But this was a burglary of a 3rd floor apartment. When I got there, there was a single man that lived there alone, no children. He was the only one living there. There was no forced entry to the apartment, and there were no keys that were loaned out or anything like that, and so it was a big mystery. I noticed that there was a patio slider that was, left open a little bit, or the screen to the slider was left open a little bit, and he was sure that he had, had closed that before he left, and he was sure that he had locked the door. And so, went knocking on several doors to the apartment, and we found this lady that lived in the bottom apartment, 2 levels down. Knocked on her door, and she didn't speak English, but her husband did, and he did a little bit of translating for me. And she basically, when was asked the question if she had seen anybody around, she had noticed that she did see 2 juveniles climb up her fence up to the 3rd floor apartment and enter through a slider door. These 2 males had entered, and there was a 3rd male that was a lookout. And once these 2 juveniles had entered, they had let this 3rd person out, and then of course they left with bulges under their hoodies, and there was something in there. So she said that she could positively identify him. Not really sure why she didn't report it. I just don't think she knew what to do. But anyway, 3 handguns were stolen with about 200 rounds of ammunition. There was a Glock, and there was a 9mm and a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber, and there was a Charter Arms revolver that was taken with a bunch of holsters and ammunition, things like that. Anyway, when I went up and talked to the man that lived in the apartment, I did a little bit of inquiry, and he said that he was dating a woman for about 5 years. He broke up with her about a year ago, and she had a teenage son. And so he was like a suspect in this particular situation. He had knowledge that this man had these guns in the house and that they weren't locked up, and he had just had them in his bedroom on the headboard and under the bed. And this particular kid was fascinated with his guns, and he was talking about how he had taken this teenager out with his ex-girlfriend shooting in the mountains. And so anyway, this teenager was a potential suspect. So anyway, I was able to get the address of this teenager, which this victim provided of his ex-girlfriend, and upon contact at the door, made an arrest, and he got a full confession from him after some prodding of him to do so. And he gave up 2 other suspects that were with him. All 3 of those juveniles were arrested. And when I inquired where those guns were, pushed them a little bit, but they took me to a nearby apartment complex where they had buried these 3 guns hastily under some leaves. And when we asked why they buried them there, this one juvenile said that there was a bully at the school that they were going to address, and the plan was the next day on the way to school, they were going to pick up these guns and take them to school. And so supervisors with the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, where I worked, believed that I averted a school shooting, and was given a Division Commander's Award for work done on that. So you can see that there could be a lot of rewards for police. It's very exciting to get guns off of the street and solve cases like this. It's part of what we do in law enforcement, is doing things to help people. So I know patrol gets really busy sometimes, but sometimes in these cases you just have to clear it with a sergeant and let your area partners know, hey, I want to work this case. Because in this particular case, had we waited, just filed a report and wait for a detective to pick that up in about a week, would have been probably too late. All right, I hope this was useful. If you've got any other videos you'd like me to do, please reach out. I'd be happy to do them for you. Thanks for watching.